January, we call it like the salad Super Bowl, right? Everybody's healthy again and wants to eat, get in shape and all of that. So our business just explodes, every January. So we're kind of just gearing up for that.
Welcome to Greenhouse Success Stories. Tune in every week as we share conversations with growers, operators, and innovators from around the world, providing insight into what's working in their greenhouses. We discuss firsthand experiences and provide insights into how these farms are succeeding and thriving. Special thanks to our title sponsor, Arnois Greenhouse, with your host, founder of Little Greenhouse That Could, Trina Semenchuk.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Greenhouse Success Stories podcast. Today, we've got an interesting discussion ahead of us. We are actually interviewing two people from the greenhouse industry, so this will be very, very interesting. We have Dominic DiMucci, who is the Director of Cultivation from Haven Greens, and we have John Karwacki, who is the owner and founder of Inspired Go. So Haven Greens is the greenhouse grower. They are providing fresh produce to John Inspired Go for their salads. So we'll hear a lot more about their backgrounds and how they work together. But thank you for both agreeing to do the show.
Thanks for having us on, Trina.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, so just to get this conversation started, I briefly mentioned how, Haven Greens, your growing product that Inspired Go is using in their salad kits, but maybe give us a bit more of a breakdown, of how your relationship started. Like, how did you both start working with one another? Where did you start with your companies? And how are you, doing today? So maybe, John, we'll get started with you. If you can go ahead, answer a bit how Inspired Go was started and then how you came to start working with Haven Greens. And then Dominic, we'll hear from you from Haven Greens.
Sure. So it goes a long way back, but my dad started a fresh produce company in Western Canada about 30 years ago. And I grew up on the US Mexico border in Nogales where the tomatoes cross. So I've kind of been in the industry my entire life. And so I worked around the world. I worked in Mexico for a lot of time, a long time, and in Europe, and came back to Canada to help with my dad's company. And he built a lettuce greenhouse very similar to Haven's in Western Canada. And I helped, was a big part of that for about 8 years. And I'm actually embarrassed about how much I know about lettuce now. And so we had this incredible lettuce that we were growing, and his company had access, whether they were growing it themselves or procuring it, to basically every fresh produce item under the sun. And I was eating at a quick service restaurant every day, paying $25 to $30 for a salad. And I was like, this is crazy. I can, make this for way more. I can make this way more economically and only charge customers, $10 to $12 for the most amazing salads. And so I ended up thinking there was a pricing arbitrage that we could take advantage of, and consumers could really win. And I approached a good friend of mine who founded the company Skip the Dishes. His name's Josh Samer, and he kind of helped me, or he really pushed me to go direct to consumer. And he obviously with Skip had a ton of knowledge on the last mile front, so delivering to customers. So he helped me get started. And then, we launched in Calgary right before COVID. We were actually delivering to office buildings, and COVID wiped out our first business. It went to zero. So we pivoted to home delivery and ended up, kind of working across Western Canada. We expanded into Ontario about 2 years ago. And then now we've opened up in the United States as well. And so how I met Haven and Dominic was actually, to be totally transparent, my business partner wanted to go see another lettuce greenhouse, and I did not want to go. I've been to quite a few lettuce greenhouses that aren't very good, to be totally candid, and I didn't think it would be worth the visit. But he convinced me to go. I walked into Haven, and I walked out of there thinking that was one of the best greenhouses I've ever seen in my life. Their attention to detail is absolutely incredible. Their team's amazing, and you can really tell by the product quality. All of those little details add up to an incredible product, and that's all we want in our salads. Like, what we do is really hard. Fresh produce to people's door, especially when you put a knife to it and cut stuff, is really, really difficult to do every week at a high level. And as soon as we find a supplier that can executed that level for us, we're all in. So I walked out of there being insanely impressed with Haven's operation.
Wow, that's very impressive. That must feel good to hear that kind of feedback, Dom, as the director of cultivation.
Yeah, it does, and I appreciate that, John. But I also understand where he's coming from. I've been in plenty of greenhouses myself, and can understand that skepticism. I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and I think it's important that we're transparent about the industry. I think that CEA is kind of wrapped up in a nice bow, maybe publicly, but it's a lot of work, and it's difficult to execute on a daily basis, and it is, despite things being controlled and sterile and clean and whatnot, like, it is not difficult to unsuccessfully operate a greenhouse, right? It happens, and we've seen turmoil in this industry. Just going back to kind of where all of this started, professionally, all I've done is lettuce. I did my undergrad and master's degree in horticulture and controlled environment agriculture at Colorado State University. I'm originally from outside of Chicago, where my family owns and operates a compost farm. So growing up, like, I was at that farm. It wasn't produce, but taking data, collecting data. That's kind of what led me into the industry. And then, not only have I only focused on lettuce, I've only focused on lettuce in these mobile goalie controlled environment greenhouses. So began at a greenhouse in Colorado. I won't say the name, but it's one of the greenhouses that John is referencing that ended up not doing too well. But took those learnings, applied it to the next project, which was more of a high-tech greenhouse in Central Texas, actually. And that's a successful greenhouse. It's a well-run greenhouse, and it's also, quite a challenge to grow in a harsh environment, kind of on the opposite of what we deal with in Canada, where we have many months of cold. There's many months of hot in Texas, and so that was, a really good learning experience in how to operate a greenhouse at a high level with suboptimal conditions. And through that experience in Texas, quite frankly, I didn't think I was ever going to leave there, but our chief agricultural officer, Eric Highfield, here at Haven Greens, had been working with our leadership team on developing this project in the background. Me and Eric had a very strong relationship with each other. He actually was doing work for the automation provider for our company, or our greenhouse, I should say. And so kind of through that relationship over a few years, that led me to take on this role of director of cultivation here at Haven Greens. So at Haven Greens, just a little bit of background, because it isn't your conventional type of produce greenhouse. It is Canada's first fully automated mobile goalie greenhouse. And so for the listeners that maybe haven't been exposed to that, what that means is our product is hands-free from seeding to harvest. So we automatically seed directly into gutters or gullies. Those gullies move perpetually throughout the grow system, and then come time to harvest, automatically fed via conveyors into a cutting and packaging system. So it's kind of the 10,000-foot overview. But through my experience working on these mobile goalie systems prior to this project is what led me to this project. And it's basically just been a journey of, kind of like John said, we do really focus on the details. That's really important to operate a greenhouse at a high level, and kind of just through those learnings have been able to apply myself and Eric combined as kind of the brain trust for the horticultural side of Haven Greens operation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that overview. I definitely have a couple of follow-up questions. I'll start with John. Just out of curiosity, why did you start with supplying offices? Like, why'd you go directly to offices and not to people's homes? And how many staff do you currently have?
Yeah, well, at the time, the thinking was the last mile is very, very expensive. And so it made more sense to drop off, 30 salads at one building versus two or three at somebody's house. And we actually built a really cool SMS texting system where, like, if you were in a big building, you get a text at like 8 in the morning. And if you clicked one, it would charge your credit card. You get like a chicken Caesar salad, or if you click two, it was like a taco salad, whatever. And it was working really, really well. And yeah, it was going great. And then COVID wiped it out. And we actually found out that the business model in direct to homes scaled a lot better in the long run than the mobile SMS platform. So we stuck with it, and we were able to figure it out. And so yeah, it was definitely challenging, but worth it for our company to go through that. Right now, we have about, call it 30 management staff, and then we have probably 60 others. And we operate, our business model is a little bit different now. We used to make the salads ourselves. Now we have co-packers that are doing it that we're really partnered intimately with, that we go in there, we teach them how exactly we want the salads made. It works really well for them because it's a great complement to their already existing operations. Allows us to scale a lot faster as well. But we still do have a pick and pack team, people actually putting the orders together in Calgary, which makes up a good chunk of the staff we currently have. And we also have about 500 independent contract drivers across North America right now, delivering salads every weekend.
Wow, congratulations. So it sounds like pretty good size, and it sounds like you're scaling and growing quickly, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, the first couple years was really about figuring out the business model and how to get the salad's shelf life to last long enough. Like the aha moment for our customers is when they open that salad on day 5 and it's the same freshness as when they got it on Sunday. And so once we figure out how to do that with each individual item, then it's possible to have one bigger facility that can make everything, and then you can ship it out from there. So that's what we're doing in Toronto. We have a facility we're partnered with in Las Vegas, which covers basically all of the southwest of the United States. And we just launched New York about 3 weeks ago now, and New Jersey, and we're planning to be across the eastern seaboard kind of by spring, and probably all of America by this time next year if everything goes well. So we're definitely on a rapid expansion plan, and we're lucky because we've been able to keep the business healthy enough to fund it out of profitability and not have to raise a bunch of money or go crazy. So yeah, we're excited about it. But again, all comes back to, like, the most important thing is the quality of meals every week, and
Uh-huh.
getting great suppliers, because really the fresh produce supply chain is the backbone of the company, right?
Yeah. So, with that being said, have you found that by working with Haven Greens and getting this really high quality lettuce premium product where they're paying very close attention to detail to grow it, that's improved, the shelf life and quality factors of the salad?
Yeah, we actually measure our customers in cohorts. So each week is a new cohort of customers, and we can actually trace an increase in customer retention, which is our most important metric, to when we switched over to Haven in Ontario. And it's been high ever since. So not only can I sit there objectively and say, yes, this lettuce tastes amazing, it's perfect with our salads, all of that, we can actually see it in our data as well.
Okay, Dom, going back to you. So you made a comment about how CEA is wrapped up, in a nice bow. And I know what you mean by that comment because young people think CEA, they think of like this picture perfect setup that, is going to solve all of our problems with food security in the future. And I have to hold myself accountable because sometimes when I promote CEA, I think I might be giving people that interpretation, as well, which is very, flawed and inaccurate. But I'm curious to know from your perspective, what do you think is a common misconception of CEA and growing in a greenhouse, and growing with a fully controlled environment that you wish people didn't have?
Well, I think it's exactly that. I've been saying this for a few years now. I like the term mitigated environment agriculture, right?
Mm.
So this is greenhouse production, right? And so that's going to be
Mhm.
separate from your vertical farm. And I'm going to just leave vertical farm out of this discussion because I don't focus on that whatsoever,
Mhm.
or do I find it to be the right tech for the application. But I think that's a different conversation, despite
Mhm.
the two kind of being lumped together. But the biggest misconception that I think people have is that, one, it's very easy because it's fully
Mhm.
automated and everything runs itself, right? Of course, that's not the case. And two, you're still very reliant on what happens outside for
Mhm.
what happens inside. And now that's not going to necessarily affect, like, we have a lot of tools in place that are still going to maintain quality and get us through those peaks and valleys. So it's something that's more of, an internal metric where, very simply put, right? Like, we're getting into lower light levels this time of year, right? You're going to see fluctuations with your output. Things can still happen in a greenhouse that I don't think, people outside of the industry fully understand. I think it's an important discussion to have that, while you put a lot of pieces in place to mitigate what happens outside, a really high performing greenhouse is still going to see, modulation and fluctuation throughout the year, mainly like on the output side as opposed to your quality side of things. But yeah, it's hard work, and it's long hours, and there's a lot of things to manage, especially when you're blending together horticulture and a pretty extreme amount of mechanical automation and mechanical engineering. So yeah, I don't think that like CEA can't be wrapped up in a nice bow. I just think that we've seen over the past few years, like either inventing problems to solve or using the wrong pieces of technology to fit an application or a narrative, and this kind of misconception between like technology companies and farming companies. Like something that's very important to me is like using the right tech for the right application and using that to like be able to scale. But at the end of the day, we're still farmers and the plant comes first. And I think the difference that you see in greenhouses that, as John alluded to earlier, maybe don't look as good, where people expect that they should look better, is because the plant isn't the one making the decisions. And as silly as that sounds, like at the end of the day, like our job is to provide the plant what it needs to succeed and to thrive, and not try to force it down a different alley to do something that we want, for whatever reason. Like if we're trying to someone's trying to push a piece of technology to make it do something, right? Like it sounds really silly, but like the plant makes the decisions, and you need to design your facility around like knowing what you're going to put into it, putting the right pieces in place, managing that CapEx and OpEx, and not just spending a bunch of money on a bunch of random things to try to solve issues. And so I think when you see the operators with high quality, and I'm proud to be recognized with Haven Greens in that category, is because they're the ones that are letting the plant inform the decision making for the greenhouse. Because at the end of the day, what matters is the customer experience. What matters is a high quality product delivered to the consumer. And like it's the logistics behind fresh produce distribution is complicated enough, and John's taking one step further of putting that on people's doorsteps as opposed to us just getting it to the grocery store, right? So that quality is paramount if you want customer retention, if you want brand awareness. It's really, really cool to hear, John, that you can actually statistically see that. And I do think that the quality speaks for itself in working with the right types of plants with the right technology for the application.
Just another question to you, Dom. I know your title is Director of Cultivation, but can you just give a brief description of kind of what your day-to-day looks like as the Director of Cultivation? Because, it's not the classic head grower title or assistant grower or whatnot. So just something that the listeners can better understand what your role is.
Sure. It's not too dissimilar from a head grower, with slightly more like management responsibility in place. But, the day generally starts with a meeting with our production and logistics team, just making sure everyone's on the same page. Like we know what we need to make, priority orders for everything that needs to go out, just kind of confirming, what our projected output is going to be for that day, for that week. That's a couple minute huddle, and then our system's moving. We like to say that this is a perpetual lettuce growing machine, and it's all one big loop. So if there's downtime for whatever reason on packaging equipment, or something as simple as a motor goes down, that just extends our day, because we have to hit our quotas. Like we don't falter on that. We are nonstop in production. We'll get things moving, check in with the production team, make sure those first few gutters coming into the packaging area are running smooth. Then generally I'll circle up with my team, what we call it our technical cultivation associates, or assistant growers. But what kind of separates them from your traditional assistant growers, they also are heavily involved with the operation of the equipment on the sowing side of things, and like the removal of spent organic matter from the building. So they're operating our drum seeders. They're, getting things mixed for the day. So check in with them, see if we have anything new happening for the morning, putting new variety trials in place, something like that. And then like most growers, like to get my line walks in, spend time in the greenhouse, just see if there's anything that seems unusual. And then, after that, it's a free for all. It's a greenhouse, and there's a lot of variability. It's really dynamic. It's fast paced. On a smooth day, it's managing the climate, managing data, managing the team, fertigation, water management, things like that. But we're also heavily involved with our maintenance team in terms of pointing out if we have equipment issues. There's a lot of mechanical components here, and we kind of work synergistically with that team to make sure that the building is running and that the system is running and everything is doing what we want. And it takes a lot of people to do that.
Yeah, I remember asking you before this call kind of what your day-to-day looks like, and it sounds like you guys have a really team-oriented approach. And one thing that I really love about Haven Greens is I saw a LinkedIn post, and you guys referred to your greenhouse as the lettuce mines.
The lettuce mines, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, like whole team, conquering these mines.
I think it's very hard to imagine if you haven't seen it, and like a high density mobile gully system like this with all the automation in place.
Okay, so just moving on to the next set of questions, but what are some challenges you guys have had with working together? I think that this might be a good topic for people to hear more about, because usually, people are thinking about just the growing side specifically, or they're in like the production side specifically, new people to the space, and maybe they're not necessarily thinking so much about the relationship and the interaction and how, how greenhouse growers are working with buyers like such as yourself, John. So maybe if you could touch a bit on that, some challenges you've had with working together and what you've kind of done to overcome those. And this time we'll start with Dom.
Sure. Yeah. I won't be too long-winded on this segment. As you know, Trina, I manage the cultivation side of things, and we have good people in place that kind of manage the distribution and logistics and sales. But certainly, like Inspire Go came on very early for us. It was a large account for us. They put a lot of faith in us early on in our tenure. I think it's, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but we're in year one of operation here at Haven Greens. The facilities has been being designed and constructed for the past 4 years now. And then, year 5 is year one of operation. So, we have our own internal kinks in scaling and getting equipment online and getting personnel in place and getting the plant up to the quality that we want. So, we're dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, while also, having trust and faith put in us from large buyers with big accounts that need their orders and their quotas met. So the one thing that stands out to me from early on is Inspire Go was like the furthest west we had begun distributing. We're here in the GTA in Ontario, and so shipping west, multiple shipments a week west, with that had been our only customer that far. There was a bit of a logistical challenge with that, but we've been able to consolidate deliveries. We've taken on some retail accounts west and have been able to work together on the shipping costs for things like that. So for me, every customer is just as important, and every like piece of lettuce is just as important for me. So like I guess the struggle is just a never-ending day-to-day, like making sure everyone is getting quality and everyone is getting their order fulfillments. And as we scale and we get big, we're effectively at a sold out status right now. And so it's kind of managing, like I said, there's not exactly X amount of lettuce coming off the line every day. We're still dealing with a living biological organism, right? And so managing expectations, making sure everyone is getting what they're ordering is certainly a challenge, and but something that we take very seriously and work very diligently on.
And how about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, I would say their biggest problem right now is they can't grow enough of their lettuce. Current state, I know there's plans to expand and get going on that because it's so great, and I think the market has really seen that. But there's been from my perspective, no actual issues with working with Haven. They've been incredible. Knock on wood, stuff always happens, but to date, it's been really smooth operating together. And the one cool thing, though, I will say that's maybe different from a normal buy-sell relationship is we're really starting to collaborate on varieties as well. Like they've identified, or Haven's identified, that their red is not yielding what they need. And so we're actually approaching this different seed companies together, the Right Swans of the world,
Oh,
the Enzas, and saying, hey, our customer wants this color red and this feel and mouthfeel and shape and all that. And it's also Haven saying, hey, we got to like make this work from a yield
I love
perspective
this.
and all those kind of things. And so yeah, when you have a partnership like this, it allows you to get a lot more creative and quite frankly put a lot of pressure on those bigger companies to innovate at the genetics level so that we're happy, our customers are happy, and Haven's happy and not having to take a big financial hit by growing something that isn't up to what they need.
Yeah, no, I really like that. It's like you guys are collaborating on R&D almost. I mean, you're not like maybe doing your own, maybe you are doing that research and development together. Are you?
No,
Yeah.
it's more just them, because they got to like every greenhouse also works differently and every microclimate's different. So they got to go figure it out. We're just kind of working together on like, here's what we'd like to see, and
Mhm.
you guys take it from there and show us what you come up with, kind of thing.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand. You guys are working together to put kind of the pressure on, larger company to innovate and provide a new variety. But I think that's really interesting because, that could be a good role or something that happens in the future between greenhouse growers and their buyers is innovating and doing research and development on something similar. That's very I just wasn't expecting that response. So, one question I have is how do you get feedback from your customers, John? Like, how did you know that they want this color red and this crunch taste? Like, are you putting out surveys or where was that decision coming from?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of data that we have is quite staggering, and it's all we care about is making sure that customers are having a great experience because our business model doesn't work. We're all, e-commerce driven, and we use Meta or Facebook to acquire customers. It's that whole game. So if you don't have customers
Mhm.
coming back, it falls apart pretty quickly. So we're measuring everything like week by week, every meal you can rate. We constantly do surveys.
Oh.
So there's a ton of feedback there. I would say the red specifically isn't coming from a group of customers as much as it's coming from our internal product development team, who's made literally thousands of salads and kind of has a pretty good gauge on what customers are expecting. And so that's where most of that is coming from. But in terms of data, yeah, you tell me what you want to measure, and I'm sure we have it somewhere.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Well, I like the you can rate your meal on a week to week basis. And I haven't ordered Inspired Go salads, but is it like I just started ordering HelloFresh. And like with HelloFresh, you can choose like 3 meals per week, once a week type of thing. Does Inspired Go do the same thing with like subscriptions with salads? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, we do both though. So like we never want to be one of those companies that's like locking people into subscriptions and you can't find the cancel
Mhm.
button and it's hard, and it shows up on your doorstep randomly, all of those things that have happened in meal kits. So you can go in and you can do a one-time order as long as you hit like I think it's 5 salads is the minimum, or you can subscribe and you obviously get like a discount if you're doing that. And we're finding a lot more people are subscribing than one time, which is a good sign for the health of the business and that people want to come back. But yeah, a lot of people try it once and then subscribe after. So it doesn't matter to us. But yeah, we'll definitely get you a code so you can try it out.
And then, you kind of, so you mentioned, putting the pressure on to get a new seed variety from these companies, but I'm wondering if either of you have made adjustments to either, your production or to your menu items based on like feedback from one another. Like, was there ever a time where it was like, oh, you maybe requested a type of leafy green that was really challenging to grow in the greenhouse, and so a different green should have been used instead? Or was it, Haven maybe growing this new variety? It's quick, it's a lot more profitable, the quality is great, and then that influences like the salad type. Has any of that ever happened at all?
I can speak to that a little bit. When you're dealing with a variety of different distributors and retailers, and someone like Inspired Go who is accumulating a lot of data, you're going to get requests for can we do this, can we do that, and we are trying to be a partner with all of our customers. We're trying to be a partner that facilitates the needs for all of our customers. But like John is saying, what's really important and what's really nice to hear, quite frankly, is that partnership. That needs to go both ways, because as a business, we have quotas to hit too, and we want to be healthy from the business side as well. And so what that means for us is that the high density crystal greens are where we focus a lot of time and energy, because that's the best tasting, that has the longest shelf life, and it has by far the highest output. Now, consumer demand very much, appreciates color, it appreciates flavor, which we do provide with the greens. But those reds, like John was saying, it can be tricky. You're generally going to look at a 25 to 30% reduction compared to what you get out of your greens. And with another thing that people might not realize about this type of system, despite from an overhead view, those greens or those reds looking very, very red, any part of that leaf that is not exposed to lighting is going to be green. And so that tends to lead to more leaves that end up with just kind of like a red tip with kind of like stem and base. And so we're on the hunt right now for how much red can we actually penetrate in. Can we squeeze a few more, kilos out of those lines? Not only does that help us, that also helps the customers, right? And so having that partnership where, this is kind of what we need and this is what you need. How do we get there is really, really important. Something would have to be extremely drastic for us to consider like just fully pivoting in terms of what happens in the greenhouse. We are constantly exploring new varieties. We constantly have trials running on our lines to see how things perform and have a full SOP and system in place for pursuing product development to next step stages. If it's something that we think will do good for us, then we start giving samples out to customers and getting their feedback and their customer feedback on if this is something that could work for both of us. But we certainly have to focus on the varieties that we feel have the highest quality. But it's for us a little bit about being able to convince the consumer that this staple green crystal variety, like it's brand new in Canada. These types of varieties and these high density systems is very, very far and few between. We were the first, and there's another greenhouse in Quebec that's doing it, and that's it. And so it takes time, I think, to build consumer awareness that some of these varieties that are beneficial for us from the business side are also very beneficial for the consumer from the consumer experience and eating side.
What do you do for promotion to the consumer on Haven Greens? Like, are you guys mostly on social media, or have you ever had like a booth at some of the grocery stores and sampling things out directly to customers?
Yeah, we're super active on social media. We have a really, really good social media team. I think we have a really cool and like our mission is to like make lettuce fun and make this unique, right? Because it is a super cool way of cultivating, and we're trying to kind of modernize this industry a little bit. So yeah, super active on social media. We're in the grocery stores. We've done sampling booths before. We've run promos at those grocery stores and whatnot. So yeah, we try to be as active as possible on our personal branding as well, and also with some collaborative things. Like this is a great example. Like this is Inspired Go and Haven Greens kind of talking as one. And so like I said earlier, it's really important for us. Like we're trying to build partnerships as well as our personal brand awareness. And no customer has higher precedent than the next. We really value these partnerships, especially with how much trust people have given us in year one of operation here.
I'm just going to give a shout out to Mackenzie in Newfoundland. He started up the Canadian Hydroponics Association. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him, but he sells lettuce, and he's got like a superhero character of his lettuce that it's like defeating all like the enemies, which are chocolate bars. It's very funny. You should check that. You should check that out for making lettuce fun.
Yeah.
How about you, John? For same question. Again, it was on adjustments to production or menu items based on feedback.
Yeah, it actually is pretty shocking that Haven got it right so fast in year one. I remember commissioning a lettuce greenhouse myself, and it was a disaster, like most startup greenhouses are. But they came up with a great blend as soon as I walked into the building. Anyways, I know it was a couple months after they started, so we haven't needed to adjust anything on our end. It's been great. Like I said, we're trying to work with them on the reds, but besides that, it's been pretty smooth sailing. And you know, on the promotion side, that's all we do. We're, a food company and a marketing company, basically, right? Like we are running an insane amount of Facebook ads and Google ads and TikTok and like you name it. But it is really cool to when we push these supplier partnerships, like our customer base loves to hear where their food's coming from, the story behind it, the provenance of it. And so it's been cool to link up with Haven on some social media posts and contests and some different things to really educate our customers on how great of a product this is.
That's awesome to hear. You guys have such a good relationship. What do you think that like most people misunderstand about greenhouse to buyer relationships? Like, I guess, John, from your point of view, have you ever, do you know of any, I guess, retailers or food service providers who they don't have as good of a relationship with their produce providers? Or do you think that there's any like misconceptions between that kind of relationship? And then same question to you, Haven. Have you ever ran into greenhouses that misunderstood, what kind of relationship you should be forming between your buyers and your operations? Maybe, John, we'll start with you.
Sure. That's a tough one. Like, I think that I kind of came from that world where I was selling lots of different
Mhm.
products to retailers, and all of them were great. But they've got big businesses to run, so they have the luxury of choosing. And sometimes that hurts if another good company comes along, they give them a shot, and it is what it is. But overall, I think the relationships are really strong in Canada, at least between buyers and growers. And then I can't say there's much misconception about it. At the end of the day, if you're producing a great product and you have the right price, you're in the game, you're in the market. It's really when on the suppliers end, they're not holding up to whether that be quality, is there a food safety
Mhm.
issue, something happens. Usually it's pretty much set it and forget it. And now that I'm on the other side where I am basically, we're kind of a retailer in a way, that's what we want to do. We honestly want to find great partners, agree to the right price for everybody, and then not really think about it because we have a whole other business to run outside of where all these
Okay.
different things come from. So our goal at Inspired Go is to find the best supplier for the best variety of whatever particular product, and then set it and forget it and keep expanding. So
Yeah, and I agree with John on that. I don't have too much to add there. I think it's just really important to. I don't think there's some like big truth or misconception, right?
Mhm.
It's a business relationship, and we're turning that into a full blown partnership. And so quality, getting it to Inspire Go is of the utmost importance to us, and Inspire Go getting it to their customers is the utmost importance to them, right? And so I think just the biggest thing is earning the trust of your buyers requires consistency. That's the one big thing,
Wow.
that I've learned doing this on the growing side of things, right? Like if you're fluctuating with
Mhm.
consistency, or you're consistently shorting, that's where you're gonna run into more issues. But you know being good partners helps you navigate those waters if things do get difficult. And that's why it's important for us to build real relationships and not just be like, thanks for buying, see you next week, right? So I think that's really really important to us, and just kind of collaboratively working together.
What advice would you give to any new growers trying to, work with major buyers? Maybe give advice, Dom, you give advice on the greenhouse grower side, and John, you give advice, on the buyer and the purchasing side. What advice would you give to anyone looking to start up a new greenhouse?
Yeah, on the grower side, I would say like know what you want to do off the bat. Don't build a
Mhm.
structure and then be like, well, let's figure out what we want to put in here, like based on customer feedback. Kind of like I was talking about earlier in the episode. Like the plant comes first, and you have to know that, obviously there's going to be a little variability, and you'll be able to, move a few things around, but like know what you want to do right away. As much believe in like the build it and they will come
Mhm.
method. Like you need to be tactful. You need to have a strategy. You need to have a plan, and you need to know what you want to put in place, and you have to let the quality and the eating experience drive your decision making and almost nothing else. So, on the grow side, it's really important to start strong and then maintain that consistency. And if you're someone that's in that like pre-construction or even like idea phase, like don't build it and then start developing relationships with retailers or distributors. Like that conversation needs to start right away, right? Because that could influence how you do things in your operation, and especially like in our position where it's somewhat of a new type of product in the market. It takes trust building and it takes some convincing of like why is this lettuce any better than anything else, right? And so I think the earlier that you can start those conversations with your potential partners, and knowing that it's your job to keep quality at front of mind and make your decisions around that, I think that's how you position yourself for success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you about do not just plan to build something and then they will come. Like anytime someone is like, oh, I want to start up a greenhouse or a vertical farm or whatnot, I always say, okay, who's going to buy the product? What market research have you done? What are people looking for? Because like that should be the first thing that you're thinking of. How about you, John?
Yeah, I would completely echo that. I've seen it work out the wrong ways for sure. And I would definitely say that for anybody interested in the space, which is a really, really interesting space. Like I think that's one thing, when I was growing up, my family, their business was more on the buy sell side and not too intimately on the growing side. And one of the mentors that I got to work with really opened my eyes to how much fun and how cool of an industry it is, although your days can be very crazy. So I definitely encourage more people to get into this industry just to begin with. Piling onto that, make sure you work at a couple greenhouses to make sure it's for you. It's not for everybody, but do that acid test first. And then if you pass that, then there's just a ton of opportunity around the world to go learn. And it's a lot less expensive than putting up a couple $1 million greenhouse. So you go to Europe, you can go to just a whole bunch of different places that you can really learn about what you want to do. And this is a one-way door. As soon as you build it, you're stuck with it. So don't build it unless you're confident. And then definitely make sure where your marketing, strategic advantages and where your product has a place in the market. And from my perspective, we're all about flavor. We're all about quality. If you have a great product and your food safety standards are where they need to be, I think you'll have success, but you definitely need to do all the pre-work before taking the plunge and raising a bunch of money or taking a bunch of debt, whatever you do, and putting a greenhouse up.
Yeah, and echoing to that, just real quick, I'd like to add, like, investing in the team early is something that, at least for Haven Greens, I think has led to us having so much velocity in year one. You'll see, a lot of operations, like we'll put one or two key people in place, and then as things start to pick up, we can build from there. But you're gonna get stretched so thin. There's so many moving parts to all these greenhouses, right? And so, like, putting the right people in the right places, despite all the automation, people are the drivers for your business. And so, that's not just greenhouses, any business, putting the right people in the right places early, making that investment up front is really going to set you up for success.
Do either of you have any exciting upcoming, expansion plans that you'd like to announce?
We're doubling in size. So like, as John alluded to, we really can't grow enough right now. It's been a crazy year, and it's been really, really rewarding to see how much steam this has picked up. Like currently we're the fastest growing lettuce brand in Canada, or in Ontario. And so we are right before frost hit here. We leveled out another 5-acre pad. So we'll go from 5 to 10 acres, doubling our capacity, hopefully getting right now we're about 10,000 pounds a day in output. And we'd like to get that up to, close to 25,000 pounds a day with some upgrades for our phase 2 expansion. So we have earthworks done. We kind of got to let winter, turn into spring, and then we'll hit the ground running, get our pad laid, and we're going to try to have plants coming out of that greenhouse in Q1 of 27.
Wow, that's exciting. Congratulations on all your guys' success.
Thank you.
How about you, John?
Yeah, well, we just launched New York and New Jersey 3 weeks ago, and it's gone really well, even though it's the hardest time to launch. Just with American Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, not everybody's thinking about eating salads, but it's past our expectations so far. And January we call it like the salad Super Bowl, right? Everybody's healthy again and wants to eat, get
Yeah.
in shape and all of that. So our business just explodes, every January. So we're kind of just gearing up for that, but we'll be basically like Boston, Philadelphia, Washington, Chicago, hopefully all the way down to Florida by April. And then we are looking at a Texas expansion for early next year. So we're always on the move doing something, but we're really excited. And yeah, we're just happy we can provide this many healthy meals to people with great partners like Haven.
Maha, make America healthy again. Uh-huh. Okay, well, thank you both so much for your time and for sharing all of this information. We are coming up to the end of the podcast, but something that we like to do to end off every show is to leave with this question. So I'm going to ask both of you, what is your proudest moment from working in this space in the greenhouse industry?
For me, I would say, it's difficult to say, but this year a really neat thing happened. I mean, one, just getting this project online so fast and kind of hitting our quota so fast. To be honest, I didn't even expect to do it. I was hopeful that we could do it. So, I'm really proud of the whole team here. But on a personal note, earlier this year, I was nominated for and won Greenhouse Canada's top 4 under 40 growers, or like people in the horticultural industry. And so that was a really neat thing for me, just to, kind of meet the other 3, candidates and nominees from that and have a little ceremony at the Canadian Greenhouse Conference there. So that was really, really cool to me, and do a little piece in their magazine.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, for myself, I don't know if I could pick a moment right now, but I would say the proudest thing about my experience so far is just watching this grow from a startup literally selling 10 salads a day to selling 10,000, and the team behind it that we've built, and watching honestly a bunch of kids fresh out of university become a real business has been insanely gratifying. And now we have the best people working on every part of the company, and just going as fast as we can. So yeah, I can't really pick a moment, but that's definitely when I look back and kind of take it all in. It's a little bit surreal.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like the whole journey from where you've come from to where you guys are now. Well, congratulations to both of you. It's very interesting to see that, Haven Greens is so successful, and at the same time, Inspired Go is so successful. And I definitely think your individual success is probably complementing one another for growth. So that's super cool. And thank you so much for sharing, all of your story.
Of course, it was great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Trina. This was a lot of fun.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Greenhouse Success Stories hosted by Trina Semenchek. Thanks to our guests who make this all possible. Special thanks to our title sponsor, Arnois Greenhouse. To read the full show notes for each episode, which includes an episode summary, key takeaways, and guest resources mentioned, please visit greenhousesuccess.com.